College football is back, and we're back on the big mountain with a very special guest.
Hey, it's great to have you back here on the mountain. I am JY. This is my good friend Steve. And as Steve said, we have a very special guest with us here, the Director of Athletics with Boise State University, the Broncos, Jeramiah Dickey. We want to welcome you, sir, to the big mountain.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we really appreciate your time here. And I'm going to start off with some fun questions, and then maybe we'll get to a few more serious questions about college football and the Mountain West and all that kind of stuff. But as I think all the Mountain West fans know, last week were the Media Days down in Vegas. A lot of buzz with that event. I loved all the publicity that it got. A lot of good stuff on Twitter and X. And, you know, for you guys in Boise, very high expectations this year. We'll get to a little bit of that college football kind of talk in a bit, but I want to just talk a little bit about the branding moments that you guys had. I know you had Jonah Dalmas kicking a field goal across the pool, the stadium pool, they call it there at Circa, which was cool. I saw the videos and different pictures of that. And then you were able to get Ashton Jeanty down there. Now, I know apparently, I guess Circa is a 21 only type of facility. So you got him right beside there and was able to get him the press coverage that he is absolutely due. I just wanted, get your take on how you feel that event went, and especially just kind of the branding pieces that you guys were able to do. What was your takeaway from last week?
Honestly, I thought it was awesome. And it's a testament really to the Mountain West and Javen and our team. And you hear me say a lot, it takes a team. We're big on telling our story, and that gives us as the Mountain West an opportunity to tell our story maybe a little bit differently. And with it being in Vegas at the same time as the Pac-2 and the Big 12, it also opened up a lot of opportunity with national media, and we wanted to take advantage of that. And in partnership with the Mountain West in many ways, and obviously Circa, an unbelievable hotel if you haven't been to it. I thought everyone did just a tremendous job. My understanding is we had over 325 attend, which was, I think 75 more than in previous years, and a lot of national media coverage. And, anytime you can have an event like that and take advantage of, especially the national media, I know you guys are on the East Coast and we're on the West, and it's challenging to get our story out there. And so, some may say it's gimmicky or whatever, but, why not take advantage of that? My job is to put our student athletes in a position that they can tell their own stories, especially in this new age of college athletics and name, image, and likeness and their brand and how we can tie into that. And when you look at the student athletes we had there, and specifically Damas, who kicked the field goal across the pool, and, it was a cool deal. And, I come from the external side, and I think telling our story is powerful, and there's value to it. And anytime you can partner with your conference and your student athletes, it's a win-win. And, I felt like we did a really good job. I would be remiss if I didn't thank our local media, and traditionally we have the most media present outside the national. And I thought that was really positive for us in terms of speaking to Bronco Nation, and then to bring in a guy like Ash that, for all intents and purposes, in this day and age of college athletics, it's extremely difficult to hang on to a guy like that. And he's a legitimate Heisman candidate. He has earned every right that he has to tell his story, and understanding what his goals and aspirations, which he spoke to in terms of getting to the NFL, and he can absolutely do it. And but he's just such a tremendous young man, and what he does on the field is what everyone probably sees the most, but who he is off the field is what I've grown, and I think our team has grown to love. He's a Bronco through and through, and he's a legend here. He committed to staying when he had other opportunities, and to give him that opportunity to get in front of national media and continue to tell his story, and us tie it into his Heisman campaign. And we're always careful. We don't want to add pressure. We know who we are. We know what the expectations of Boise State is, with 26 straight years of bowl eligibility and everything else. But we didn't want to miss that chance, and really appreciative of everyone who helped out. And I thought, all in all, it was a really a positive event for us, and we got a lot accomplished in terms of who we are, and continuing to tell that story.
Yeah, great. I mean, it was a really neat week. Like you said, the Big 12 was there, the Pac 12-2 were there. And obviously the Mountain West was there. It just felt like a great kickoff, to the college football season. That's basically all we do on the Big Mountain is college football. And it really felt, especially for me being a Mountain West fan, just like, okay, I'm ready. The game should have started the next week. I'm ready to go here. The thing I did want to follow up real quick. I mean, you mentioned Ashton and his Heisman hopes, and we have brought that up on the Mountain several times. We absolutely think he should be in that discussion. Of course, him being a running back, any running back, it seems like it's now become a quarterback race for the most part. But he clearly has the talent. And he's getting the exposure. Obviously it's a work, probably for you guys, a little bit of a work in progress to get that national exposure at some degree. And we're here to help that as much as we possibly can, being a little podcast that we are. But what are your thoughts? I mean, specifically to the Heisman. I mean, I think getting him on the stage would just be phenomenal. I mean, of course, everybody wants to win it. But kind of what are your thoughts on the Heisman race, if you will, for Ashton?
Yeah, we're big on controlling what we can control. And, ultimately, the goal is not to put any pressure on these student athletes, and knowing who Ash is, I also know he's not defined by it. He's a Bronco and he's a good teammate and he represents us well on and off the field of play. And he's extremely deserving of the recognition that he's gotten. And I think he has a tremendous opportunity this season. I don't really pay attention to what everyone else is doing, from a Heisman standpoint. I think we have, and probably our first since maybe Kellen, an opportunity to maybe get someone on stage and whatever we can do to help. But I also know that we live by this what's next mentality, and what's next for us is Georgia Southern, and it's 1-0 mentality, and we're gonna count down to that kickoff, and that's really the only game I'm concerned about. And knowing Ash, all he's concerned about is helping his teammates win, and getting to that next game. And I think there's a lot ahead of us, and so much can happen in college football, and we've seen that year in and year out. And we're trying to enjoy the ride while we can, and and as I said, control what we can. And, I think Ashton's a big part of that. And obviously the big part of, what the expectations are of this team this season.
Yeah. And it came up obviously at Media Days. There were questions and just a very humble response. I saw the video of that, very humble response here for the team. Clearly he wants to be and is a Bronco. Like he's at the spot he wants to be in. Just a really humble response, I thought, from him. So enjoyed hearing that. And so let's get into the Broncos a little bit more here. We are bullish on the Broncos, big time bullish on the Broncos this year. So I'm going to pass it over to Steve. We got big expectations, preseason favorites, pretty much anywhere you look for the Mountain West. And I know you guys wouldn't want it any other way. You're like, yep, that's where we want to be. So let's get into that, Steve. Let's get into some football here.
Yeah. So again, JD, we really appreciate you being on the show. Having the athletic director for a program like Boise, to me, one of the top programs in the country over the last 20 years, and really one of the hottest programs this year. So much buzz around your program. We really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. I want to talk first. I kind of have a two-part question about the college football playoff. Okay. Just kind of give you a chance to just kind of offer your thoughts on that. So kind of big picture and small picture. First of all, big picture, going to a 12-team playoff. A lot of the national talk has been about how this is so great for the power conferences, where they got exactly what they wanted. They locked in a guaranteed spot, whatever. But to me, something we've talked about is we think that this is a fantastic opportunity for the G5, and specifically a program like Boise State, where it was really hard before. The path was so narrow to get into a 14 playoff. I think Cincinnati was the only G5 program to ever do it, and they were kind of an outlier. So just in general, what does a 12-team playoff mean for a program like Boise? And then specifically, I want to ask you this year, and I know you said you can only control what you can control, you're one game at a time, but I want to ask you about your role as the athletic director. We've seen in a 4-team playoff where either the head coach or the AD had to go out and lobby for his program and his team, because it's still a bit of a judgment call. How do you see your role in that? If we get to the end of the season and Boise's had a great season, like many people think they will, and maybe they're fighting for a Mountain West championship, do you feel like you have a role to advocate for your program to make that spot, or do you just kind of sit back and let the chips fall where they may?
Yeah, well, I'll go to your first question. The impact of a 12 team playoff, and the reality is, guys, and you mentioned it, Cincinnati was the only one that really rose, and we've always had high expectations, right? 26 straight years of bowl eligibility. I think this is our 14th consecutive year of being picked to win the conference. So we're used to that. Really our goals have changed from getting back to those Fiesta Bowl years to now this seat at the CFP table, and similar to probably every other group of five, a team out there. And I think the fans are going to be, just as excited, not just seeing it expand, but the fact that someone like us will have an opportunity. And there are a lot of great teams out there, but the fact is we finally have a seat at the table. And, and however disappointed I am that it took this long to get there, we want to take advantage of those opportunities. At the same time, that's not something that I nor our team really concerns themselves with right now. We are concentrating on what we can control, and that's what we're currently doing in terms of workouts. That's fall ball, which is fast approaching, and the team being out there, that first week of August, and that countdown to kick off for Georgia Southern. But yeah, I think it's powerful when you think about a school like ours that we don't have what everyone else has. We have that blue collar work ethic, and we do everything we possibly can to stretch our resources and invest appropriately and serve our staff, our student athletes, and our supporters. And we know who we are. It doesn't necessarily define us per se, but it does drive us. And that's something that, I'm just as bullish. I believe in our team. I believe in our student athletes. I believe in our coaching staff. I believe in Bronco Nation. And it truly does take a team. And, it's not just winning games. It's getting to those games and selling season tickets. We're about to go over 19,000 season tickets, and those are things that matter to a program like ours. And now that I have the ability and the opportunity to sell hope to our fan base, that you can have a great year. Prior to this year, you could have a great year and you may not even get into a New Year's Six game, and now all of a sudden you have a great year and you have a seat at that table where you can compete on a national level. And once you get to a postseason, just like in March Madness, anything can happen. My hope is that something epic does happen, and that we're not going to be limited in the future just on this one seat that we're all fighting for. But you take what you can, and this is progress, and and that hope is powerful in terms of our fan base and the support that we're receiving. And and it's humbling to be picked, to finish where where we're projected to finish in terms of the conference. And obviously there are a lot of high hopes, and people think very highly of our program right now. But that can change in an instant, and that's where we continue to go back to, one play at a time, and let's get to that first game and control what we can in that process, and to concentrate on what's next. In regards to whether or not I'm gonna politic, for our team, that day may come, as we get into October and November, and but it's hard for me to think that way, honestly, because I am so not concerned, but I'm concentrating on that first game. And I think sometimes it gets lost, the process and the ride, and enjoying the moment, and to be in the situation we are, to have a Heisman candidate, to be, with this goal of 20,000 season tickets and 6 games, 6 sellouts, and how we've improved the fan experience. And that's something that I'm trying to maybe look at it a little bit differently going into this year, is to enjoy the process. And I'm a competitor. I love our industry. I love what it represents, and I absolutely love these kids. And I just want them to compete. I want them to represent each other, and I think if the culture's right, and you have that process in place, I think epic is achievable. And we're shooting for epic. And it doesn't mean that there aren't other teams that are just as worthy of of the recognition that maybe we've gotten of recent. But, I also, it's not lost on me. We've earned that, and not many teams, right? I think 3 of them have gone to 26 straight bowl games or been bowl eligible 26 straight years. And, that's a testament to the brand that I inherited, and my job is to improve on it. And if at some point in time in the season, it comes to that point and I have an opportunity to take my platform and tell our story differently and scream from the mountaintops, I will always back our team. I will always back our student athletes, and I will fight for them tooth and nail. And that's something that I think is important.
Awesome.
Great.
Love it.
Yeah. So I think next, if we want to shift gears, Steve, you want to get into a little bit of the kind of the future of revenue sharing and coming out of this potential settlement with the House and NCAA. So why don't we get into that next?
Yeah, and before I get to that question, I'll just say let's make a deal, JD. With if the Broncos are in the Mountain West Championship game, we'll have you on again, and we'll revisit part 2 of that question. And
All right.
and
I promise you, I'll jump back on.
All right, okay.
I'll start that on your show.
All right, okay, okay. So the next question, a little bit more big picture college football. So in the aftermath of the House settlement, we have a settlement. We don't know exactly what it's gonna be like yet. They're still working through the long forms of the contracts from where we understand. But there's going to be an opportunity to basically expand revenue sharing. And the big question has been, okay, the assumption is the power conferences, those big moneymaker schools are definitely going to do this. But the open question is how many G5 programs can participate in this and to what level? So I just want to ask you, how do you envision, what's your vision? And I know we don't know all the details yet, and I'm not trying to pin you down on a number or anything like that. Do you envision Boise State participating in a revenue sharing program? And do you think you could, and if so, do you think you can do it at a level to compete, the teams that are trying to get in that college football playoff with the Power 5, or would it be your goal maybe just to be one of the top of the G5? What's your perception on that, and how does Boise State fit into that?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head in terms of there's still a lot to be determined, and how this is going to play out. I've heard a lot of other ADs and I don't blame them coming out hard and saying we're going to do it. And I think the vast majority are trying to figure out, all right, if this is the direction we're going, how are we going to do it? And we're not, there is no money tree.
Right.
Ultimately, our revenues are invested back into our department, and we have 18 sport programs, 350 plus student athletes, and that's important to us. But it goes without saying, and what it means to be a Bronco. We've never had what everyone else had. It's not like when we were competing with Coach Pete and Kellen and those guys that, somehow we were outspending Georgia and Texas and Oklahoma and all these other schools, right? So not much has changed for me. And that's my message to our team. Let's control what we can control. And yeah, there's going to be opportunities, and we want to create the best possible student athlete experience. And that's going to include some type of revenue share at some point. And, obviously the collective's important, and name, image, and likeness. And, but I don't know if we're at a place right now that I can say, yeah, we're going to do 22 million that's been thrown out there. I think not just for us, I think for many schools, that's going to be unrealistic. But I do think that this creates opportunities. And for someone like me, who's a newer AD, I don't feel new anymore. I feel like I've been here 10 years, but 3.5 years into the job, there's, you think about, the impact you can have, and, and with the industry changing and whether there are guardrails or not, depending on who you talk to me, I see opportunity. How can we think differently? How can we present it differently? How can we run out maybe ground balls that other schools aren't necessarily looking at, whether that's private equity or private capital or private credit, or, there's always a solution. I'm a firm believer there's always a solution. It's just what level of work are you willing to put into it? And that's what I can control. And what I can promise you and anyone else listening is that we are doing everything in our power to put our best foot forward in regards to what's next. And, some things still need to be determined, the Title IX implications and whatnot. But like most years, and since I've been here, we've never defined our expectations based on others. We define the expectations for ourselves, and then we go live it out in action. And that's led to, records in revenue generation and season ticket sales and the whole 9 yards. There's always more. Every school needs more. And I spend a lot of my time, energy, and effort trying to find those other revenue buckets that potentially can help us compete at a higher level. But in general, in summarizing, I don't think much has changed for us. We've had what everyone else has, but I don't think we need it. I have a lot of faith and trust in our staff, our student athletes, and our supporters. And I believe who we are, and that's why I'm here. And I love being a Bronco, and I'm excited what the future holds. And I believe we're going to be competitive regardless.
Awesome. Really appreciate your answer.
Yeah, great. And so I'd like to end our time with you, JD, with just kind of focusing on the Mountain West, a conference that we have been saying is the premier Western conference for the NCAA. And, when you look back at the kind of the environment and the turmoil that has been ongoing, especially on the Western side of the country here over the last 18 or so months, it certainly seems like the Mountain West members and Commissioner Nevarez have done a really good job of just, kind of keeping together, staying focused during these kind of turbulent, unknown times. Can you speak about just the unity within the conference, where you feel things are at right now, and about Commissioner Nevarez and her strength as a leader?
Yeah, and I think it starts with her. I think, at least in my short time in the conference, this is the most united I feel we've been. Now, with that being said, as an athletic director, my job is to do what's in the best interest of Boise State. And every AD feels the same way about their own institution. And Gloria is in such a maybe even an uncomfortable position that her job is to do what's in the best interest of the Mountain West, which represents all. And when you have that divided, and it sounds, I'm not implying that there's a divided front, but there's naturally this divided front that every institution is doing what's in their best interest. And that's where you've seen a lot of this realignment talk, and then the past decisions that have been made, and the PAC no longer existing the way we know it. And, it's a testament to her that she continues to drive forward, and she's very innovative in her thought process. And I think the Mountain West staff around her team has really stepped up, and they've gotten creative. And you've seen over this past off season, not just the strategic plan, but the Arizona Bowl, tying back into name, image, and likeness, and and the scheduling alliance with the Oregon State and Washington State. As I said before, there's always a solution, and what I really appreciate about our commissioner is she's willing to fight the fight and do what's in the best interest of the conference. And quite honestly, in a conference that actually makes regional sense and provides a premium experience for our fans and our student athletes, and in an area of the country that I believe needs more representation.
Yes.
And, the hope always is that the national media and others will pay more attention, but we have a seat at that table too. And, it's not just us. There's some tremendous programs in our conference and some ADs that I look up to and think very highly of in our conference. And, it starts with leadership, and for us, it starts with Gloria and her vision and direction. And I am bullish, just like you said, in terms of, naturally and biased, I'm bullish on who we are, but I'm bullish on what our conference represents. And I think that's powerful in this day and age when you see so much dysfunction, and that's probably a whole other conversation.
Right.
It's nice to be in a conference that, I feel like if we were ever locked arms, it's now. And that doesn't mean it won't change, and that doesn't mean other opportunities won't come. But, that's a testament to her and the direction that we're headed. And I'm really grateful because, as much as I'm a work in progress, and I learn a lot from watching her, in terms of how she handles the media, in terms of how she handles her own team, and in terms of how she has to navigate. I work with one president. She has to work with all presidents. She has to work with all ADs. And, and I'm just really grateful for her, and I think she does a tremendous job.
Yeah, and you mentioned that strategic plan when it came out, I guess, earlier this year. And I know "at the peak" was always kind of the slogan for a while. I think I think it's still the slogan, but now there's Ascend Together that I think came out with that as well. And I love that. First of all, I love the imagery about mountains and peaks and ascending and all that kind of stuff. But, it kind of goes along with what you're saying there is like, hey, we're moving forward together. Of course, we have to do what's right for our individual schools, but let's ascend together. Let's make us the best conference we can possibly be. And if we lose a member here or there, so be it. But hey, maybe we'll gain a few members, whatever that looks like. But we're stronger together. It's easier said than done sometimes, but stronger together than we are, as an individual piece, so to speak.
Oh,
So
absolutely. And I think, if you're not growing, you're dying. And you have to create movement, to allow yourself the ability to pivot. And I think that's what she's doing. It's extremely challenging right now in a leadership role in this industry. And everyone points the finger, but at the end of the day, we're owning what we can and, and controlling what we can. And I think that's important when you look at this new era of college athletics and it's, whatever it was yesterday, it's changed today and it's going to be different tomorrow. And that's something that, is top of mind for me every morning I get up. I have to think differently and I know she's the same way. And there's going to be opportunities. We're a copy and paste industry. And really what it's doing is it's putting leaders, you have to be an adaptive leader and it's putting us, in a position to really make decisions and think creatively and actually live out that innovation that we're specifically for Boise State that we're founded on, that I think she's really embraced that, there may be 12 different ground balls or, collectively we're running out as a conference and the goal is that one of them works. And you kind of have to have that mentality that you can't stop, you can never settle and you can never be complacent. Like you got to keep grinding and chopping wood and keep going. And I think she's really embraced that.
yeah, and the last question I want to ask you, you mentioned the scheduling agreement with the PAC. So maybe my last question isn't about Boise or the Mountain West. It's going to be about the PAC because we have done a lot of things here on the Big Mountain about when this all started and the PAC started to dissolve and then through the hearings and the settlement they got to. And we have really taken the Beavers and the Cougars kind of under our wing. We do a lot with them. We try to do updates for them because they have been somewhat forgotten about, especially now that there's a settlement. Everybody's like, oh, that's done. Everybody's focusing, it appears, on FSU and the ACC at this point because that's the next issue that's going to burst. But so we've kind of brought them on it, and I would be remiss if we didn't bring them up here. And we have always we try to listen to the decision makers. When President Schultz talks or Commissioner Nevarez or certain ADs, I know Scott Barnes has talked a little bit about some things. And just curious from your standpoint where things are at. Do you have any thoughts on what the future may hold? I'm not going to use the PAC term, but I'll say, whether it's a scheduling agreement with the Beavers and the Cougars and what that might look like with the Mountain West. Do you have any thoughts or opinions on what the future might hold there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I believe Gloria and the Pac-2's commissioner spoke to this. Obviously we have this agreement for this year and there's the option of 25 and
Yeah.
And I don't have much to add other than what they've already said. I think there's still a lot to be determined in terms of where we're headed as an industry. And, when you look at the ACC and I can't speak, intelligently to everything going on in the ACC other than what I read, what you guys read. And in terms of my network and the people I talk to, everyone's trying to figure out what's next and how is that going to domino? And is the Big 12 going to expand? And what are the Pac-2 going to do? And, would Cal and Stanford come back west? And there's so many what ifs. We're almost, I'm growing accustomed to it where it's no longer an uncomfortable piece. It's just part of our day to day. And, you're kind of always waiting for, like when it first happened, when Texas and OU left, it was like, oh my God, what is going on? And since then it's like, when then the PAC goes away and so now it's like, yeah, nothing surprises me anymore. I'm not saying, some of it made sense, some of it doesn't make sense. And, and I think now more than ever, we need good leaders and these commissioners have an opportunity and athletic directors do as well. And time will tell, where they go. I know Scott, he's going to do what's best for Oregon State and I don't blame him.
Yeah.
And I feel I have so much empathy for both Washington State and Washington State's gone through a lot more change, but I have so much empathy for those schools and those fan bases and those student athletes, because this job is hard on a good day. And
Right.
when you're navigating dysfunction, and a lot of it you can't control, some of it you can, I guess, but a lot of it you can't. I'm just really empathetic. I know that that had to be really challenging for them. And, at the end of the day, though, we are turning, especially on the college football side, it's professionalizing and it's becoming more of a business, and you're going to see more business-like decisions as we move forward. And, and I think that's probably what's being discussed, and what does it look like, and how do you, positively or negatively impact your student athletes experiences and, your fan base. I think that's getting lost in a lot of this.
Yeah.
That's what I appreciate about the Mountain West and the regionality of it, and the fact that, we do have a lot. I mean, Bronco Nation's large, and we have a lot of Broncos that travel, to various games, and they're in this region, and it makes it that much easier. We can't lose sight of the fans. We have to think through that, because we're not the NFL. And, this idea that, there's something powerful. There's a reason I chose college athletics, and that alumni, base that you have, and that student experience, and, and the families and where you're recruiting. And, that's something that I just hope doesn't get lost. And so, I'm grateful that Oregon State, Washington State are in the conference this year, and, and at least in the scheduling alliance. And, time will tell. And I know Gloria is spending a lot of her time, energy, and effort on making sure the Mountain West is in a good position moving forward. And, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm excited to see them having the scheduling agreement. I know it takes away from some of the Mountain West Conference games in order to do that, but it does seem, at least for this year, maybe two, that it seems like a win-win. I'm anxious, and we've heard President Schultz say he's really anxious for his fans to travel to some of the Mountain West locations, of Boise, of Fresno, all these different places, just to get the feel for something different, and what the Western power right now, the Western Power Conference, if you want to call it that, is. And that's the Mountain West. So I'm excited for it. And we'll see what comes. Like you say, we'll see what comes after that. As you say, always what's next. I love that hashtag. Always what's next. So
I have a quick, I'm not going to put you on the spot with another question. I just have a comment for you. I just want to say, I think, so we cover the Big Ten and the Mountain West, but we also look at the national college football picture. And honestly, I think I'm in my mid-40s. There's more excitement about college athletics. I mean, we just had a great NCAA basketball tournament that was so exciting. So between basketball and football, and even the Olympic sports, I think there's more excitement than ever before. But really, coming into this football season, so much national excitement. Got the new NCAA game coming out, the NCAA 25. We've got the 12-team playoff, which I think most fans are really excited about. And I'm sure Boise fans, that opportunity to get in that playoff. So my comment is just, I think it's such an amazing time in college football. A lot of times we want to focus on the bad things, the court cases and all that kind of stuff. To me, I'm excited. And I think it's really interesting that while there's all this national excitement, it also just seems to be lining up for Boise State, for the Broncos. I know you don't want to put any extra pressure on the teams, on the programs, but it really seems like such an exciting year. And you guys have an amazing opportunity with a potential real Heisman Trophy candidate, a potential, if you can make your way through that Mountain West Gauntlet and win that championship, to compete for a college football playoff spot. So to me, that's just my comment in general. There's a lot of opportunities. The players and the coaches got to go out and execute those opportunities, but it's a huge time. We're super excited about Boise this year and following you guys, following the Broncos. And we just can't wait to see how it goes.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. And I know you didn't ask a question, but
Yeah.
I will make a statement. 10 years, we're going to look back, and, for a newer AD, a younger AD, and this was my dream, right? And you get there, and to be a part of this, we have a choice. We can see the negative, or we can see the positive, and we're going to look back, and I'm really grateful that I have a seat at this table, and that, we get to be a part of something that will be epic. And, as an industry changes, that does create opportunities for Boise State. And I'm really excited about this season. And like you said, it's always what's next.
Well, we thank you so much for your time here I know you're a very busy man. Everybody seems to think that summertime is the slow time in the educational realm. There's never a slow time. So we thank you for all the time you've given us here on the mountain. And for all of our fans, make sure you like this episode, subscribe if you like our content. We have all things college football coming up. We pick every Big Ten Mountain West game and throw in all kinds of fun stuff with that. So, hey, with that, we'll see you guys next time on the Big Mountain.